What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today it's my number 27 team in my 2023 NFL Deep Dive series. It's the Carolina Panthers. Make sure to hit the like button and leave your comments in the comment section whether you agree or disagree with my takes. Maybe I didn't explain something fully like I wanted to, but we can discuss that in the comment section. I can provide more context, get discussing with each other about all of these teams, and subscribe, of course, so you don't miss out on any of the new videos that I release in this series, and you can go watch the old ones as well. And we're covering Carolina today, who had the number 1 pick in the last draft. They traded up from the number 9 spot with the Chicago Bears. Really gave quite the haul to the Bears. Gave up gave up their best offensive player in DJ Moore to do it, as well as a future first round pick. I think there's a second round picks in there as well. There was a lot of draft capital given up that the Bears really got a good haul out of. And it was really because this is a brand new team. They're really starting from the ground up. Brand new coaching staff, brand new quarterback, brand new receivers room. Really the only thing that they're bringing back is the defense. They have the offensive line. They kind of did a little bringing back some key players, drafted sort of basically like a swing guard in Chandler Zavala, who we'll get to that throughout this video. But it's really a big overhaul, and this is a team that when you traded a future first round pick that in this scenario is a top 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 6th overall pick by my standards in the draft, you're kind of building for the long-term future, the long-term success. And it's not really a team designed to win now. Obviously, they got a brand new quarterback who they're going to try and develop. They got to get him some more weapons. They brought in some veterans at the running back position in Miles Sanders. At the wide receiver position, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark. And Hayden Hurst, the tight end as well. They seem to be committed that they got their quarterback, they got their left tackle in Ikem Ekwonu, and they got Frank Reich, the head coach, who's basically like a quarterback wizard, allegedly. They new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. They're in a division that is also quite winnable. So they could easily be in this position here. I think just as easily as they could be divisional champions at this point. Just because we will see that their defense is still a strength on this team. And the offense has a lot of question marks that if they can answer some of those questions in some key games, especially within the division, they might be able to sneak a division title into here. But just the way that it worked out for me, this is where they ended up, the 27th team. And I kind of changed up the format of how we're going to do this. If you've seen some of the earlier videos, the first 5 videos that were released for the series, not drastic change. We'll still start with the coaching staff, and let's get to that now. So this coaching staff opens up for me as the 27th coaching staff in the league. I don't necessarily hate it. I think Frank Reich got a weird roll of the dice in the Indianapolis Colts situation where he was a last-minute signing after Josh McDaniels bailed at the last second and never really had stability at the quarterback position, which I think it was very telling when they were so willing to basically sacrifice their immediate future to get Frank Reich a quarterback that he can mold from the very start and the very beginning. I'm just not so sure about him. I think that those Colts teams had a lot of talent on them, and they underachieved pretty much every year. Especially last year. I understand Carson Wentz is the quarterback, Matt Ryan as the quarterback. I get that. It's just Frank Reich just doesn't come across as somebody overly inspiring to me as a head coach. Sort of like the thing with Todd Bowles and Josh McDaniels. I like them much better as just coordinators, perhaps. And speaking of his coordinators, he has Thomas Brown. You see him there on the left as his offensive coordinator. He's coming over from the Rams, where he was a assistant head coach and the tight ends coach. He also coached the running backs in 2020. He was the running backs coach when the Rams won the Super Bowl. They were 7th in point scoring, 9th in total yards. Now, how much of that was him? I don't know, because Sony Michel had 680 yards that year. 845 actually. And Darrell Henderson had 688. So he had a good two-headed monster there, and he's got I think a better version of that to work with here. With Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. So I think that's something really, I think it's a positive. I just don't know, if I'm being honest, you just don't know what you're going to get when he gets into this coordinator position. You know, when you're a first-time coordinator, first-year coordinator, yeah, he's coming from a really strong system with the Rams, regardless of how terrible they were last year. So he's going to bring over some of that McVay strategies and play design. But at the end of the day, it's also going to be Frank Reich's offense. So how he molds, how Frank Reich is going to mold Brown into something that works with what Frank Reich wants to do, should be interesting to see. It's always really interesting to see a first time coordinator, because sometimes they really end up being a fish out of water. They don't really know how to do all that stuff. I think his experience as an assistant head coach, though, does help him, because when you get that assistant head coach role, you're basically being molded into becoming a coordinator when they give that to position coaches. But a guy that is probably the best coach on the roster for me, and that's Ejiro Evero, who's coming over from the Denver Broncos. He was the defensive coordinator in Denver. They were the 7th defense in the league last year, 10th in rushing. They were 2nd in third down conversion percentage. And he's inheriting a pretty good defense as well. A defense that was actually quite good last year. A defense that kept them in a lot of games last year. And he's going to get to work with guys like J.C. Horn, who's looking like he's out until some point during August as it stands. He's also getting some, underachievers who perhaps they're looking at to revitalize the career or kickstart the career. I have a guy like C.J. Henderson, who's still on the roster. Dante Jackson's there. He's sort of like their true number 2 corner that's sort of stood the test of time in Carolina so far. He's also getting the likes of Jeremy Chin, who he's going to get to use as a safety, as a linebacker. He's getting Von Bell and Eric Rowe. So he's getting all these different pieces that he can sort of put in all these different places on that defense, which should make for, I would say, a chance for improvement based on last year, which it's tough to improve on how well this defense looked. Now, the defense did look much better next to their offense, and you're hoping the offense is just a little bit improved with now more stability at quarterback, and I would say a much better head football coach, which, based on the fact that they're ranked 27th, shows how little I thought of Matt Rule last year. But this is a real opportunity for Evero. In general, I think this could be the year that he establishes himself as a head coach of the future. So I don't know how long he's going to stick around here. I do think that Brown and Reich on the offensive side are more likely to be something that sticks together, which is important based upon how they're building this roster, which is clearly now with the offensive side of the ball. And we're going to get right into these offensive players. We're going to start with the quarterback, Bryce Young, who I give an 81 to start. He's the best quarterback that we've covered so far, by my estimation, but he is a rookie. At the end of the day, he's a rookie without a true number 1 receiver, as it stands right now. He's a rookie with a average offensive line that you hope that he can use his athleticism and use maybe a quick passing game, some exotic looks, a lot of motion, a lot of play action to assist with that. And he's also got a really good mentor, though, in Andy Dalton, who I grade a 71. Andy Dalton is, as a backup, graded better than some of the starters that we've put out so far. Baker Mayfield comes to mind. Jimmy Garoppolo comes to mind right off the top. And that's a really good mentor to have. I think Matt Corral, he's sort of getting the crap end of the stick here. It really reminds me of what happened to, was it Colt McCoy? I think it was Colt McCoy who got drafted. And then the next year, Cam Newton got picked, number 1. I think that's how it happened. Was it Colt McCoy, or am I getting him confused with somebody else? I don't know. But I feel like Matt Corral's sort of getting that treatment here. Now, that quarterback class was horrific. He probably wasn't going to be a successful starter in the NFL anyway, but being bumped down to a number 3 quarterback, and as we're progressing here, maybe something comes up in training camp where a team will throw a 6th-round pick or a 7th-round pick at Carolina to pick up Corral to bring him in as a backup. I don't know. But I think that this having Bryce Young, people can say all the things that they want about his size or whatever, and they're comparing him to Kyler Murray in a way of explaining why he'd be a bust, as if Kyler Murray's been a bust when he really hasn't. Just, injuries, lack of leadership with Cliff Kingsbury. I think Bryce Young coming into a culture, into a roster, into a team, into a coaching staff where he's going to be working with the same people for probably his entire rookie contract. They moved up and gave up a lot. So they're giving Frank Reich and that coaching staff a lot of rope. So he's going to get a time to mold himself. I think the expectations are going to be low, at least within the organization. And I think as long as he continues to show flashes and shows, step-by-step improvement, this could turn out to be one of the better moves in the long run that have been made in a long time by a team really selling the farm to go get one player. And if you're going to do that, you go and do it for a guy like Bryce Young. I think it was a great decision and great draft pick for the long term. Short term, the Bears fleeced them. For the long term, Bryce Young's a better quarterback than Justin Fields, to me. So let's now look at the rushing threats out there. They're basically the running back group. And I put Bryce Young in there as a 67 because he is a rushing threat. He's going to be doing a lot of read option, RPOs, with this backfield that consists of Miles Sanders, who gets an 82 from me coming off a career year, and then Chuba Hubbard, who gets a 79 from me, who I was always very high on, Chuba Hubbard. I think that a lack of inspiring play in his final year at Oklahoma State dropped him down draft boards in his draft year, but turned out, in my opinion, to be one of the steals of that draft, and Carolina getting him. And I think the two-headed monster of him and Miles Sanders, they do bring some different dynamics to the run game as we move forward into the receiving back aspect. I give Chuba Hubbard a 71 grade, so I expect him to be the majority of those third down snaps. I think Raheem Blackshear is also a pretty good receiving back. That's sort of really what his role would be on this roster. Miles Sanders, I give him a 64. I think I would favor these other 3 backs ahead of Miles Sanders, not by a lot, not by a significant margin. You see the rookie there, Cameron Peoples, who they drafted as well. I give him a 66. He's probably the 3rd back overall on this roster in terms of first and second down, and then here on third down. So I think if Miles Sanders can't stay healthy, which has been part of his history outside of last year, or underperforms, which has been part of his history outside of last year, I think Cameron Peoples could be a real option to step in and take some snaps away from him. And also for Chuba Hubbard as well. I think that there's a lot of safety in having a guy like Cameron Peoples on this roster who can sort of do a little bit of everything, who's on a rookie contract, who there's really no pressure on him. You can put him in really in any situation. If you're getting an injury or you want to shut a guy down, load management-wise. There's a lot of options there when you get a guy like Cameron Peoples. I think Spencer Brown is the odd one out in this backfield. I expect him to carry just the 4 running backs. But yeah, Chuba Hubbard seems to be the better all-purpose back that they have, with Miles Sanders, the true sort of workhorse back, and then Cameron Peoples does a little bit of both. Raheem Blackshear, he's going to be like Brandon Bolden in this offense, is the best comparison I can have. There might be a time where he enters a game for 2 or 3 snaps, on 3rd and long or something, but I don't foresee him seeing the field as much when you have guys who are also 1st and 2nd down backs, whose talent levels are much higher than his, who aren't all that much worse on 3rd down, or in Hubbard's case, better. So Blackshear has a space on the roster. I think it's going to be mostly on special teams. Now moving on to this brand new receivers room, and it's 4 brand new guys, as you can see right here for this roster. We'll start with Adam Thielen, who, he's older. He's not the Adam Thielen that he used to be. He's not a number 1 receiver. He wasn't really a number 1 receiver ever for Minnesota. It was always sort of Stephon Diggs and him, and then Justin Jefferson and him. I think he brings a great leadership quality to the locker room, some really good intangibles that could really help along a rookie like Jonathan Mingo, who you see they're getting a 66, who can help along the quarterback, Bryce Young, the rookie, help him along, get him comfortable out there, be a reliable veteran source out there for him to turn to in these game situations. I think that's why you bring in a guy like Hayden Hurst, also a solid tight end who's going to play on all 3 downs most likely, for at least for the most part. Neither one of these guys are going to really blow anyone away. I think DJ Chark, the deep threat, let Bryce Young sort of, set the arm free a bit there with DJ Chark. I think Jonathan Mingo, you slowly mold him into being the team's number 1 receiver after using a 2nd-round pick on him. And then you look at some of the depth. This is one of the deeper rooms in that, like I said, there's not really a number 1, but there's a lot of guys on this roster where I'd be comfortable with them as my number 3 receiver, because you look at Terrace Marshall, he gets a 67, Laviska Shenault gets a 66, Damiere Byrd gets a 66. That's some pretty good depth, because you're going to get a reliable person with a bunch of different skill sets as well. Terrace Marshall sort of started to come along last year. I don't know if immediately this year he's going to have much of a spot with Jonathan Mingo being a 2nd-round pick. Laviska Shenault's sort of going to be the slot, lineup in the backfield, gadget type of a player. They're really happy with what they've seen with him so far, this new staff. So I expect him to get used in a bunch of different ways. And Damiere Byrd, sort of the same thing. See him get used in very specific ways throughout the year. Can step in relief duty of pretty much anyone. I don't know about Shi Smith making the team. And then Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas, not all that worse than Hayden Hurst. I think Tommy Tremble really needs to step up, though, and establish himself. I think he possibly by the end of the year could establish himself as the team's number 1 tight end. He just has to take advantage of the opportunities that he really hasn't done that great of a job so far of doing. He really walked into a situation where he was given every opportunity to be the team's number 1 tight end, just hasn't stepped up to the plate. But I really genuinely like the depth of this room. No number 1 guys, not even really number 2 guys, but I wouldn't be, if Chark or Mingo or Thielen get hurt, I'm not going to feel significantly worse, if worse at all, when a guy like Terrace Marshall steps in, Laviska Shenault, Damiere Byrd steps in for one of those guys instead. I think you sort of feel the exact same way about the receiver room. The same thing with Tremble and Ian Thomas when it comes to Hayden Hurst. You sort of basically feel the same way about the tight end position with any one of those 3 guys in there. I just think that there's obviously some type of hierarchy in talent somewhat. Now we're going to look at their pass blocking from the offensive line, and we'll start with the two tackles. Taylor Moton, one of the most solid veteran tackles in the NFL. Not a superstar by any means, but you know you're going to get some quality pass blocking out of him there at the right tackle spot. Ike Ekwonu, last year's first-round pick, he's going to have to really improve from last year. We knew the pass blocking was going to be a bit of an issue. When he came in, he'd be a much better run blocker. I don't know that he was a significantly better run blocker than he was a pass blocker last year. I do think that he's going to get a real opportunity here to develop, and he's going to have to develop. This is really going to have to be I don't want to say a bounce back year, but he's going to have to take an extra step. He's going to have to take that Andrew Thomas step forward in terms of being a pass blocker. Their two interior guards, you got Brady Christensen there, who's trying to find his place in the league. I really liked him coming out. He was the ultimate my guy. Him and Chuba Hubbard were really two of the biggest my guys in that draft class, and they both ended up in Carolina. I think Christensen could find himself settling in here at the guard position, but this could be his last chance as a starter on this roster, because you know he's not going to play one of the tackle spots with the guys that they got. And then they got Austin Corbett there, who to me is one of their better offensive linemen. He's like super reliable as a guard. I think he's one of those guys where if he's like the second or third best lineman on your offensive line, you're super satisfied. I think that's the case here between him and Taylor Moton. And then Bradley Bozeman at the center position, super reliable, just a guy kind of like him and Corbett. I sort of look at being the same quality in that they're a starter, they're a good quality starter, not a superstar, but you know that in all facets of the game, you're going to get solid play out of both of them because they're consistent. They're not going to blow you away, but they're consistent. They're consistently above average at everything. And really, in the NFL, if you have a collective offensive line that you're above average, you're probably going to have a lot of success, especially if you can mix in the right playmakers. And I think that with Bryce Young and Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard, that they got some good playmakers out there. Even Laviska Shenault, Jonathan Mingo coming along, they're going to have these opportunities with this type of offensive line. You look at the bench, the depth for pass blocking. Chandler Savala, the rookie, I give him a 66. I think he's a solid swing guard. I like Cameron Irving as basically the sixth offensive lineman. I think you can put him pretty much anywhere on that offensive line in a pinch, and you'll get a quality player. I think he's a little bit better at pass blocking right now than you would get out of Ike Ekwonu and out of Brady Christensen, just by the smallest little bit for Christensen. But the reason why he doesn't start over a guy like Ike is because you're developing him. You get him out there on the field. You know that the ceiling for him is amazing. I'm not so sure about the rest of the depth for this offensive line in the passing game. I don't think Justin McCray is going to make the team. Tecklenburg's really the only other center on the team, so just by happenstance, he'll probably end up making it. Cade Mays was another my guy. There's a lot of my guys from their draft classes here. He just hasn't really panned out after looking like he was going to be a first-round pick, a second-round pick for a couple of years, and then just sort of fell out of favor by not taking that next step in college, and then hasn't really stepped up here in the pros either. So his versatility might help him, but they have Cameron Irving for that, so that it might not really. I don't know. They might just be carrying Coleman, Tecklenburg, Zavala, and Irving on this for this offensive line depth. Then when you get to the run blocking, Ike's a little bit better at that. Taylor Moton takes a step down, for sure. He's nowhere near as good of a run blocker as he's a pass blocker. Corbett, like I said, kind of the same. He's a little bit better at pass blocking. Christensen takes a bit of a step down in the run blocking game, this is the place where he really would need to step up if he wants to maintain his spot in the starting lineup. And then Bozeman's sort of, he's a little bit better of a pass blocker than a run blocker. But I still like him. This is, to me, Pass blocking, they're an above average offensive line. Run blocking, they're about average. They're about average. They're about as middle of the pack as you can get. And then you check out their depth. This is where Cade Mays really gets a chance to shine through, where he can compete with a guy like Cameron Irving. He just really needs to improve in the pass blocking aspect, because if he can improve on his pass blocking, he is a much better run blocker than Cameron Irving is. So in terms of that competition for a roster spot, if he can show some tremendous strides in his pass blocking, he might be able to find a spot on this roster. Chandler Zavala is sort of just the same as Austin Corbett and Bradley Bozeman to me, where he's a little bit better at one thing, but he's pretty much, you know what you're going to get with him. I think that's important for a rookie, because then he can just sort of develop behind the scenes a bit here. And you might find yourself in a way where you can get rid of Brady Christensen and have Zavala play in his spot. Or Austin Corbett, you can dump his contract, perhaps. You might feel comfortable doing that with Zavala. So he's got a real chance here on this roster. Lamell Coleman, again, sort of just the same run blocking and pass blocking, not much of a difference there. Justin McCray, a better run blocker than a pass blocker, but still just not, he's still the worst on the roster to me in all facets. But the overall offensive line, this is the same they're bringing back pretty much the same offensive line they had last year. Starter for starter, player for player across the board. So there might be an opportunity here for some chemistry to get built with this offensive line, which will only make the offense better. So you could have a lot of great chemistry with a bunch of guys that are average, above average at everything, and it could actually end up making the offensive line outperform their actual just pure talent level. And I think there's a potential for that to happen here with Carolina. So just running through the position summary here in the passing game, 81 quarterbacks, 71 receiving backs, 68.3 receiver room, 66 tight ends, 73.2 pass blocking. That's the starters there. The depth, for the receiving backs and the pass blocking. The receiver room and the tight end room are sort of just whatever. They're not great groups. You look at the running backs, they got some good depth, some solid starters there at the top. The receiver blocking, I think, is actually something that sort of gets lost in all this. You get a guy like Laviska Shenault, who's actually a really good blocking receiver and could be really effective in the run game in multiple different ways, which makes sense with how they're talking about him in the Panthers sort of media world right now. But the run blocking will have to improve. The tight end blocking will have to improve significantly to help with those outside runs in particular. So we take a look at the total offensive summary. It's the 25th best offense in the league for me. 25th passing, 23rd rushing. Bottom 10 in pretty much every facet of the offense. But like I said, there's a lot of potential here. I don't know that they can be as dynamic with the type of weapons they have in the wide receiver room right now. But I think that with strong offensive line play, they could surprise a lot of teams. They could steal a lot of points and potentially then steal a lot of games this season, just by the way that they're structured. Now we're moving on to the defense, and we'll start with the defensive line in terms of the pass rush. And you got the two edge guys. You got Brian Burns, and then who's going to be edge number 2? They drafted DJ Johnson, but I do like Marquise Haynes on these passing downs as an edge pass rusher, just a little bit better. Derek Brown, I think he's solid. One of the more solid interior defensive linemen. And then Bravion Roy is the next best interior guy for me. I think he fits a certain role in this defense in general. But again, really suffering at finding that second interior guy for this defensive line and this defensive front four. You look at some of the depth here. DJ Johnson, I think throughout the year, as he improves as an edge rusher, you hope he'll end up taking a lot of the snaps away from Marquise Hayes. But I think early in the year, they're going to stick Johnson to just maybe early down situational rushes. Amari Barno, Yeturgros Matos. Yeturgros Matos, just completely disappointing. I think that he's potentially done. I know now that they're running a 3-4 defense, he could find himself as like a 3-4 defensive end on early downs, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Amari Barno is just a super athlete off the edge. You look at the interior depth, they don't really have anything for the pass rush. Deshaun Williams, Henry Anderson, you got kind of like these 3-4 defensive end types. Shai Tuttle, in the passing game, I wouldn't expect much from him. Marquand McCall, just another depth piece there. Then when we take a look at the defensive line in terms of their ability to stop the run, this is where a guy like DJ Johnson comes in. He's actually, by my estimation against the run, probably the best edge player they have for first and second down right out the gate. I do like Derek Brown as one of the better interior defensive linemen against the run. And then Shai Tuttle, this is where he really gets to step up and shine. Brian Burns, I feel like you got to have him on the field at all times. He's not the best against the run. He's much more of a pass rushing specialist, but maybe with Ujiro Evero, he can step up his game a little bit in that aspect. They are high on him. They are going to keep him. They didn't trade him for 2 first-round picks when they had the opportunity to do so. I can't imagine what it would look like if they did pull off that trade, given the fact that they made the move they did for Bryce Young. But clearly they have Brian Burns as a specific top-end piece for this defense for the long term. And you look at, they are going to be a 3-4 team, so they're going to probably have a 3-man front on the interior, like a traditional 3-man front. And in that, I believe that will include, we'll talk about Amari Barno, who can step in on those early downs. Can't really get anything else from the other edge guys. But for the interior, you do have Henry Anderson, who's a traditional 3-4 defensive end. I think you'd see him in the more traditional base sets. Not a lot of teams other than Tampa Bay really run a base defense, like a base 3-4 defense, insignificantly. So I think Henry Anderson on early downs, though, he can get some work in there. Early in a game, first down, you can have him, Tuttle at nose tackle, have Derek Brown playing a 3 technique, and you can have DJ Johnson and Brian Burns on the edges with Thompson and Luvu in the middle. I think you got a really good potential there for early down rush defense from that front 7. Now we're going to talk about the linebackers, and before you guys crucify me for this, just let me explain myself. This is a linebacking group that is very, it lives on the edges for me, so to speak. It lives on the fringes for me. In terms of against the pass, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of Frankie Luvu in coverage. I'm a big fan of Frankie Luvu as a blitzer, but I'm not a big fan of Frankie Luvu in coverage. Shaq Thompson is sort of just not really continued to live up to what they thought they were going to get of him when he was sort of paired up with Luke Kuechly and Kuechly left. In the passing game, that is. I don't really like the depth either. The rookie Bumper Poole's got a great name. I think he could get some work on early downs potentially. But Camus Gruger-Hill, don't really like him. And Brandon Smith is kind of like Frankie Luvu's backup in the sense that he's kind of an off-ball linebacker, kind of an edge guy. You're going to want to blitz him a lot, but if he's dropping back into coverage, it's going to be an absolute freaking nightmare, I think. And then against the run, you couldn't find 2 better linebackers for me against the run. They both get 90s, which is the highest grade that I've given to a linebacker in any facet of the game, I believe, up until this point. Levante David was in the high 80s for passing, and then I think in the mid to low 80s for the run. But these guys as a combination were phenomenal last year against the run. And I can really see them coming into their own again because Luvu is a great blitzer. So he's able to get into that backfield, get those TFLs. Shaq Thompson has good sideline to sideline athleticism and takes really good angles in the run game. So you can really have, if they can even be 75 to 80% of what they were last year, you got one of the best inside linebacker groups in the entire league, which is why when you look at the entire run defense in general, like I was saying with the front seven, you get these two linebackers, you get Johnson and Burns, and you get that interior with Derek Brown, Shai Tuttle, and Henry Anderson. That's a tough defense to run up against, especially then when you take into account that there's, the defensive backs that they have that we'll get to in a minute. After these two guys in the run game, I think Bumper Pool really steps up, but you don't really have anything else. Gruger, Hill, and Brandon Smith in the run game, to me, useless. Two of the worst. But I like the potential of Bumper Pool as a third linebacker on this roster, because now you can get into a situation where you might have Bumper Pool play in the middle and Frankie Louvu can go and play one of the edge positions on early downs. Right? So you can have great potential there as well. I think it does bring down Louvu's effectiveness, certainly, if he's playing on the edge, because then you're working against a tackle rather than, blitzing and trying to catch a guard or up like a pulling guard or, a crash blocking tight end sort of off guard by it. I think he can beat a pulling guard. He can beat a tight end in those blitzing situations. I don't really know against even a decent tackle, he's going to be as effective in the run game. He might be really good at setting the edge, allowing Shaq Thompson and Bumper Pool to make plays. But I think that could be something that they roll out situationally, and you can sort of float these guys around, have them stand in weird places, make the quarterbacks identify where they are. I think Bumper Pool allows them to sort of be that way. And even if they want to go a little bit smaller, have like a smaller set, you can have Thompson, Pool, Louvu, Brian Burns, DJ Johnson all in the field sort of at the same time. You would just need high quality interior play from guys like Brown and Tuttle to make up for the lack of size, but you could have a lot of speed out there, a lot of athleticism mixed in there, and really Jiro Evero is going to have the opportunity to draw up some pretty creative things given the different talent levels he has and sort of the hybrid players he's been given. And you want to talk about some of the hybrid players. You got Jeremy Chin, who in pass coverage as a safety, I give him a 69. I have heard that they plan on using him as a linebacker. I think you could see him come down, play some linebacker on these third downs, play in the slot on passing downs. You got the outside corners, J.C. Horn there, 73, Dante Jackson, 70, sort of just, average. You're hoping that one of these guys step up, be a true number one. You're hoping it's J.C. Horn. C.J. Henderson in pass coverage, horrific. I do think he'll get on the field because of his ability in the run game that he showed. Von Bell, solid starter. Had some pretty good years there in Cincinnati. And you look at some of the depth here in pass coverage, not a lot of it at the cornerback position. They drafted Regjon Wright, who could see some snaps over C.J. Henderson on passing downs. But then you also got Xavier Woods, Jamie Robinson, the rookie out of Florida State, Eric Rowe. Eric Rowe can come up, play some slot on passing downs. Chin can play some slot. You can play Xavier Woods deep. There's a lot of different, sort of like what you got with the linebacking group. You got some versatility there that Evero could really play with. And you look at them in run support, this is where C.J. Henderson really shines. He gets a 70. Jeremy Chin gets an 80. Von Bell sits at a 66. Not getting a whole lot of run support out of these two outside corners, Horn and Dante Jackson. And you look at some of the depth here, not getting it out of really anybody else in that cornerback room. You are getting it from Eric Rowe, who's tremendous against the run. I think you could see him coming in, playing some slot, or playing some safety as well. Jamie Robinson could be playing some safety in the situation if they move Jeremy Chin down to linebacker or into the slot. So there's some good quality guys in the safety room. The cornerback room, it needs so much work, though. There's not a lot of depth there. No one that really wows you, so you really are banking on J.C. Horn getting healthy and taking that next step, and Dante Jackson stepping up his game as well and not regressing to allow a lot of these younger guys like Taylor and Wright to develop their games behind the scenes without actually, because you get to throw them in there now, whether it's in pass coverage or in run protection, run support, you're not getting anything great, anything even good. You're getting below average play out of them as it stands right now. But I love the safety room. Love the safety room. Lots of depth, lots of veteran football IQ that I think everyone's really going to love sort of throwing them out there and mixing them around as well. So just writing down the positional summaries yet again, not a lot of depth. The depth is really what kills this defense. For me, in terms of starters, if they can stay healthy on defense, they're going to be a really good defense. If they suffer a key injury, they could be in a lot of trouble because they just don't have the talent and the bodies on the bench that can really step up and save the defense from taking a giant step back. If they do lose somebody like a Frankie Louvu or a Brian Burns or a Derek Brown, they'll be in a lot of trouble. Jeremy Chin, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They don't really have anyone that can step up into those people's roles and fill them really to even a 75%. Maybe Chin, depending on how you view him as a linebacker or as a safety, and if it's situational. In run support, you do have guys like Eric Rowe who could step up, but in pass, against the pass, you don't really have it. So there could be some issues here if a key injury gets picked up. And you look at their overall defense, they have the 24th defense in the league, really dragged down by the pass defense. It's a really tough go when you're not a great pass defense. The rush defense is fantastic. They're the 5th best rush defense to me on paper. Just so much talent, so much great talent, at least in the starters. The pass defense, so much to be desired. You need a better third cornerback. They just don't have one. They really need to have better play than what I have graded out and projected right now from their 2 best corners. The play on the back end in the passing game needs to really get better as well with the safety group. They need to figure out a way to mix and match the veteran talent that they have to come up with the best group to really help out. Again, the linebackers, they need to really improve in pass coverage. Even that front 4, who's going to be that true number 2 edge guy? Is it Marquise Haynes in the pass? Can DJ Johnson step up as an overdrafted rookie? It's really going to be tumultuous to watch this pass defense play, and I think that inevitably is going to be the fall of this defense. So we're running through their record prediction, and they are 5-12. There's a couple games in here where they might be able to steal it. I think it's all specifically within their division. I had them going 3-3 in the division, splitting the series with each team. It's tough. It's tough. What's Green Bay going to look like? What's Jacksonville going to look like? Could they beat Tennessee in Tennessee? They have to play in Miami, in Detroit, in Seattle. Again, it's so tough. It's so tough to see, especially early in the year when their offense is getting their feet underneath them. Bryce Young's getting used to the speed of the game. Going through those early rookie quarterback struggles that you're for sure going to get, and going up against some pretty good defenses like in New Orleans and Seattle and Miami, even an improved defense like Detroit. So there's going to be some situations here early on in the year where they run into Houston and Indianapolis, which I think they can win those games, especially because they're at home. A lot easier games to play. They might be able to steal a game at Soldier Field. They might be able to steal a game in Tennessee. But if they're gonna win the division, the division games are the key ones I think for everyone in the NFC South. If you can pull off 4 or 5 divisional wins, you'll probably win the division, even if you struggle the rest of the way out, which I think is likely for these teams. You're not going to see these teams ranked very highly for me. Spoiler alert. And there's a lot of boom or bust potential, I think, with all of them. I think Tampa Bay is undisputedly the worst. But the other three rosters, I think it could really go either way with the other three teams at this point. Just so happens that the way it worked out, Carolina just couldn't get over the hump. And I think that having the rookie quarterback, the brand new coaching staff, not a lot of weapons at the receiver position, and the tight end position, at the end of the day is what's really going to drag them down. And the lack of a pass defense will really drag them down, especially against teams like Seattle and Minnesota and Detroit, Miami, Jacksonville, even potentially Green Bay, especially Dallas. I think that's really what the downfall of this team's going to be. But just dropping in the final summary, 5-12, third in the division, 13th in the conference, 27th in the league with the 27th coaching staff, 25th total offense, 25th pass offense, 23rd run offense, 30th pass defense, 5th best rush defense in the league for the 24th total defense. This is about, I think this is, I don't know if this is optimistic. This might be as fair of a ranking as I've given any team so far in this series. It's the one I'm the most confident with, I think, outside of Arizona being last. And there it is, my number 27 team, the Carolina Panthers. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content. I mean, you made it this far, right? And hit the like and leave a comment in the comments section below about what your thoughts were on this video. Thumbs up even if you hated it. The thumbs down just kills the algorithm. So thumbs up. And then if you didn't like it, tell me in the comments section. Sort of like get it out and also help me out. That would be great. And stay tuned for the future videos. The next one, if it's posted, is there. And if it's not there, that means it's the previous one. And then the playlist for the entire series will be there. So you can see where all those videos are, nice and easy access for you guys. And I will see you with the next video soon.